She only wanted to feed her daughter. He only wanted to go unnoticed. But when two worlds collide in the rain, an unexpected gesture changes destinies forever. Late afternoon rain fell soft and persistent over Seattle, the kind that soaked through everything, without seeming to try. Emma Harrison shifted the weight of her daughter in her arms, adjusting the worn blanket around Sophie's small face to keep the drizzle away. The baby was quiet, too quiet perhaps, but Emma tried not to think about that. She had learned not to think about too many things at once. One step, one moment, one problem at a time. That was how you survived. Her boots squelched against the wet pavement, and she could feel the cold water seeping through the crack near her left toe. The sensation was familiar now, almost comforting in its predictability. There were worse things than wet feet. She had experienced many of them. At 26 years old, Emma knew the streets of Seattle better than most taxi drivers. She knew which corners offered the best shelter from the wind, which shop owners would let her warm up inside for a few minutes, which bus stops had benches that were not too exposed. She knew the rhythm of the city the way a sailor knows the tides. The grocery store on the corner of 5th and Marion was small, one of those neighborhood places that somehow survived, despite the larger chains surrounding it. Emma pushed through the glass door, grateful for the blast of warm air that greeted her. The fluorescent lights felt harsh after the gray afternoon outside, and she blinked a few times to adjust. Sophie stirred against her chest, making a small sound that might have been contentment or complaint. Emma could not always tell anymore. She moved through the aisles slowly, her eyes scanning the shelves with the kind of focus that came from necessity. Every price tag was a calculation, every product a careful consideration. In her coat pocket, she could feel the small collection of coins and crumpled bills that represented everything she had managed to earn that day. 3 hours of helping unload boxes at a farmer's market. 2 hours of watching someone's dog while they ran errands. $1.50 from a kind woman who had seen her sitting outside a coffee shop and pressed the money into her hand without a word. The baby formula section made her chest tighten. Sophie needed the sensitive formula, the one that did not upset her stomach. Emma had tried the cheaper alternatives, but they had made her daughter miserable, crying for hours with cramps that Emma could do nothing to ease. She reached for the familiar purple container and held it in her hands, staring at the price tag. $14.99. It might as well have been $100. She stood there for a long moment, her thumb tracing the edge of the label, before carefully placing it back on the shelf. Think, she told herself. Think practically. The bread that was marked down because it was a day past the sell-by date. The bruised apples in the discount bin, a small carton of milk. She could make that work. She could always make things work, somehow. That was what she had been doing for the past 8 months, since Sophie was born. Since everything had fallen apart. Since the life she thought she was building had revealed itself to be nothing but wishful thinking built on the weakest foundation imaginable. Emma made her way through the store, selecting items with careful deliberation. A bunch of bananas that were starting to show brown spots. A loaf of whole wheat bread with a bright orange 50% off sticker. The smallest carton of milk they sold. A jar of peanut butter, because it was protein and it lasted. She avoided looking at the other shoppers, the ones with full carts and dry clothes and homes to return to. She had learned that looking at them only made the ache in her chest worse. At the checkout counter, she placed her items on the belt with hands that tried not to shake. The cashier was a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a tight mouth. She rang up the items without comment, without even looking at Emma's face. Behind her, Emma could hear other customers shifting impatiently, the rustle of shopping bags, the beep of a phone, someone sighing heavily. $12.37, the cashier announced, her voice flat. Emma began pulling coins from her pocket, counting them out on the counter. Quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, the familiar burn of shame that she had tried so hard to push down. The woman behind her in line muttered something under her breath. Emma's hands moved faster, sorting through the change. She counted it twice. $11.15. She was short. I need to, Emma started, her voice barely above a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. Could you take off the milk? The cashier reached for the carton without expression and set it aside. $9.82. Emma counted out the exact change, her fingers fumbling with the coins. She could feel Sophie's warmth against her chest, that small weight that was both burden and blessing, the reason she kept moving forward even when everything in her wanted to stop. The cashier handed her the plastic bag, and Emma took it, murmuring a thank you that went unacknowledged. Outside, the rain had picked up. Emma pulled her coat tighter around Sophie and headed toward the bus stop 3 blocks away. She did not have money for the fare, but the shelter where she had been staying was too far to walk with the baby in this weather. She would have to hope the driver would let her on anyway. Some did not. It was always a gamble. The bus shelter offered little protection, just a thin metal roof and a bench that was already occupied by a man sleeping under a pile of newspapers. Emma stood at the edge, trying to shield Sophie from the worst of the rain. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her wet socks chafing against her skin. The grocery bag dangled from her wrist, surprisingly heavy for its meager contents. She thought about the formula she had left on the shelf. She thought about the milk she had been forced to remove from her purchase. She thought about her grandmother's house, the small bungalow in Tacoma where she had spent her teenage years, where there had always been enough food and a warm bed and someone who loved her. That house was gone now, sold to pay for medical bills that had piled up in those final months. Everything was gone. Her grandmother, her home, her plans for the future, even Sophie's father, though he had never really been there to begin with. Just a boy she had known for 3 months, who had disappeared the moment she told him she was pregnant. But she still had Sophie. That was something. That was everything, really. Emma looked down at her daughter's face, barely visible in the folds of the blanket. Sophie's eyes were closed, her tiny mouth slightly open. She looked peaceful, unaware of the rain and the cold and the uncertainty of where they would sleep and what they would eat tomorrow. Emma felt a fierce surge of love mixed with terror. How was she supposed to protect this small person? How was she supposed to give her any kind of life worth living? A bus appeared in the distance, its headlights cutting through the grey evening. Emma straightened, preparing herself for the conversation with the driver, the explanation, the possible rejection. But then she noticed something. A man was standing near the entrance to the grocery store watching her. He was tall, wearing an expensive-looking coat, and he was holding several shopping bags. As Emma met his eyes, he looked away quickly as if embarrassed to have been caught staring. She turned her attention back to the approaching bus, unease prickling along her spine. In her experience, men who stared were rarely good news. She had learned to be wary, to trust her instincts, to always have an exit route. The bus pulled up to the curb with a hiss of air brakes, and Emma stepped forward, clutching Sophie closer. The driver was an older woman with grey hair pulled back in a bun. Emma opened her mouth to explain, to ask, to plead if necessary, but before she could speak, the driver waved her on. "Go ahead, honey," the woman said, her voice kind. "Get that baby out of the rain." Relief flooded through Emma so suddenly that her eyes stung. "Thank you," she managed, climbing the steps carefully. She found a seat near the back and sank into it, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. Through the rain-streaked window, she could see the man from the grocery store still standing there, still watching. Then the bus pulled away and he disappeared from view. Emma rested her head against the cold glass and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she would look for more work. Tomorrow she would figure out how to get the formula Sophie needed. Tomorrow she would keep going, because that was what you did. You kept going. There was no other choice. James Mitchell stood in the rain outside the grocery store, watching the bus pull away into the evening traffic. He had not planned to follow the woman. He had not planned any of this. He had simply stopped at the neighborhood store to pick up milk for Lily's breakfast, something quick, before heading home to relieve the nanny. But then he had seen the young mother at the checkout counter, counting out coins with shaking hands, and something had shifted inside him. He could not explain it, not even to himself. It was not pity exactly. James had never been the type to feel sorry for people. He believed in hard work, in personal responsibility, in the idea that everyone was the captain of their own destiny. That was how he had built his company from nothing, how he had survived the loss of his wife, how he managed to be both father and businessman to a demanding 5-year-old. Pity was for people who needed to feel superior. This was something else entirely. Recognition, maybe. He had seen something in the way she held that baby, the fierce protectiveness mixed with barely concealed fear. He had felt that same combination of emotions every day since Sarah's accident. The terror of being solely responsible for another human being, of knowing that every decision you made could shape or shatter an entire life. He saw it in the set of the woman's shoulders, in the way she had counted out every last penny, in how she had given up the milk without protest. James turned and walked back into the grocery store. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher now, almost accusatory. He moved through the aisles with purpose, picking up the infant formula he had seen her return to the shelf. The purple container felt heavier than it should. He added other items: baby food, diapers, a package of onesies, teething toys. He was not entirely sure what babies needed. Lily had been cared for by Sarah during those early months. But he grabbed what seemed practical. At the checkout counter, a different cashier rang up his items. A young man with headphones around his neck, who barely looked at what he was scanning. James paid with his credit card, the transaction smooth and unremarkable. As he left the store with his bags, he realized he had no plan for what came next. He could not chase down a bus. He did not know where the woman was going. For a moment he stood there in the rain, feeling foolish, the bags growing heavy in his hands. Then he remembered something. She had been standing at the bus stop. If she was a regular in this neighborhood, she might come back. People had routines, even people without homes. He had read that somewhere, an article about homelessness that had crossed his desk during a corporate social responsibility meeting. Patterns provided comfort even in chaos. James walked to his car, a black Tesla parked half a block away, and placed the bags in the trunk. Then he sat in the driver's seat, rain drumming against the roof, and tried to figure out what he was doing. This was not like him. He was a man who made decisions based on data, on projected outcomes, on careful risk assessment. He did not chase after strangers with bags of baby supplies. He did not insert himself into other people's problems. And yet here he sat, unwilling to drive away, waiting for something he could not quite name. His phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca, his nanny. "Lily wants to know if you are bringing ice cream." James smiled despite himself. His daughter had convinced him that Tuesday was ice cream day, and she held him to it, with the iron will of someone who understood negotiations better than most of his business partners. He texted back, "On my way. Chocolate chip?" The response came immediately. "She says cookie dough or nothing." James laughed, started the car, and pulled into traffic. As he drove through the rain-slicked streets toward his house in Queen Anne, he could not stop thinking about the woman at the grocery store. Who was she? What had brought her to that point? Was the baby's father in the picture? Did she have family, friends, anyone? At home, Lily met him at the door with her usual enthusiasm, throwing herself at his legs, with enough force to nearly knock him over. She was small for 5, with Sarah's dark curls and his grey eyes, and she had more energy than seemed physically possible for someone her size. "Daddy, did you get cookie dough, did you?" Lily demanded, already trying to peer into the shopping bag he carried. "I did," James confirmed, setting the bag on the kitchen counter. "But dinner first, remember?" Lily made a face but did not argue. She had learned that arguing with Daddy about food rules was a battle she would not win. Rebecca, a sturdy woman in her 50s with endless patience, was already plating chicken and vegetables. She smiled at James over Lily's head. "Good day?" she asked. James thought about the woman counting coins, about the baby wrapped in a thin blanket, about the bags of supplies still sitting in his trunk. "Interesting," he said finally. "How was she?" "Full of questions about when you were coming home," Rebecca said. "And she wants to hear more of the story about the dragon princess." After dinner, after ice cream, after the elaborate bedtime routine that Lily insisted upon, James sat in his home office and stared at his computer screen without really seeing it. The house was too quiet. It had been too quiet for 3 years, ever since the accident. He and Sarah had planned to fill it with noise, with more children, with the chaos of a large family. Instead, it was just him and Lily and the echo of their voices in rooms that felt too big. His phone rang. Marcus Webb, his college roommate and one of his few close friends. James answered, grateful for the distraction. "Please tell me you are not still working," Marcus said without preamble. "It is almost 9. "I am sitting in my office, but I'm not working," James replied. "Does that count?" "Barely," Marcus paused. "You sound weird. What is going on?" James found himself telling Marcus about the grocery store, about the woman and the baby, about the bags still in his trunk. He expected Marcus to laugh at him, to tell him he was being ridiculous. Instead, there was a long silence. "So what are you going to do?" Marcus asked finally. "I do not know," James admitted. "I cannot just show up with baby supplies. She will think I am insane, or dangerous, or both." "Maybe she will think you are kind," Marcus suggested. "Novel concept, I know. I do not want to make things worse. I do not want to embarrass her." "Then do not make it about her," Marcus said. "Make it about something else. Tell her you grabbed the wrong items. Tell her your office is doing a donation drive. I do not know. Be creative. You are supposed to be good at solving problems." After they hung up, James sat for a long time in the darkness of his office. Finally, he went downstairs to the garage and retrieved the bags from his trunk. He brought them inside and placed them on the kitchen counter, staring at the purple formula container as if it might provide answers. Tomorrow he would go back to that neighborhood. He would find her, and he would figure out some way to help that did not feel like charity, that did not rob her of her dignity, because that was what he had seen in her eyes at the checkout counter. Not just desperation, but dignity, a refusal to be pitied, a determination to keep going no matter what. It reminded him of himself in those first months after Sarah's death, when everyone had wanted to help, but their help had felt like an acknowledgement of his failure. He understood the need to stand on your own, even when you were barely standing at all. The next morning, James dropped Lily at kindergarten and headed to his office in downtown Seattle. Mitchell Technologies occupied 3 floors of a gleaming high-rise with views of Elliott Bay. He had built the company from nothing, starting with a single software contract in his tiny apartment 12 years ago. Now they employed over 200 people and had clients across the country. It should have felt like enough. Most days it did, but today, sitting in his corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture, he felt restless. Victoria Pierce knocked on his doorframe, already talking before he could invite her in. "We need to discuss the quarterly projections," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Marketing is requesting a budget increase, and I think we should consider it, but I want your input first." Victoria was his co-founder and chief operating officer, brilliant and driven and sometimes ruthless in her pursuit of success. They had worked together for 8 years, built this company together, survived near bankruptcy together. She knew him better than almost anyone, which meant she also noticed when his attention was elsewhere. "Earth to James," she said, waving a hand in front of his face. "Where are you today?" "Sorry," James said, forcing himself to focus. "Quarterly projections, budget increase. Walk me through the numbers." But even as Victoria laid out spreadsheets and growth trajectories, part of his mind was already planning his route through the neighborhood where he had seen the young mother yesterday. He would go back after work. He would find her. He would offer help in whatever way she could accept. It was the right thing to do. It was the only thing he could think about doing. Emma spent that Tuesday morning doing what she did every Tuesday, helping at the Pike Place market. Mr. Chen, who ran a vegetable stand near the fish throwers, would let her sort produce for a few hours in exchange for $20, and whatever vegetables he could not sell. It was not much, but it was reliable, and reliability mattered more than generosity when you were trying to survive. Sophie slept in a carrier strapped to Emma's chest while she worked, organizing carrots by size, pulling wilted leaves from lettuce heads, stacking tomatoes in neat pyramids. The market was busy, tourists and locals mixing together in a stream of bodies that flowed past the stalls. Emma kept her head down and her hands moving. She had learned that being invisible was safer than being noticed. "You are good with your hands," Mr. Chen observed, watching her work. "My daughter, she cannot stack like that. Everything falls." Emma smiled slightly. "I had a lot of practice helping my grandmother in her garden. You have family here?" "Not anymore," Emma said, the words coming out more sharply than she intended. Mr. Chen nodded and did not ask anything else. That was one of the things she appreciated about him. He did not pry. By noon her back ached and her arms felt like lead, but she had earned her pay. Mr. Chen pressed $3 extra into her hand, along with a bag of vegetables. "For the baby," he said firmly, when she tried to refuse. "Good food makes strong children." Emma walked back toward the shelter where she had been staying, the vegetables heavy in her arms along with Sophie. The afternoon stretched ahead of her, empty hours to fill before the shelter opened its doors at 6. She could go to the library, where it was warm and dry and no one bothered you if you sat quietly. She could walk along the waterfront, watching the ferries come and go. She could try to find more work, though Tuesdays were usually slow. Instead, she found herself walking back toward the neighborhood grocery store. She told herself it was because she needed to see if they had marked down any bread, but really, she was not sure why she was going. Maybe it was just habit. Maybe it was because that store felt familiar now, a landmark in the landscape of her days. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained grey and heavy with the promise of more. Emma pushed through the glass doors and moved through the aisles, not really shopping, just walking. Sophie was starting to fuss, that particular whimper that meant she was hungry. Emma found a quiet corner near the back of the store and prepared a bottle with the formula she had managed to buy yesterday, mixing it with water from the drinking fountain. It was not ideal, but it was what she had. As Sophie drank, Emma leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. She was so tired. Not just physically tired, though her body ached in a dozen places, but tired in a way that went deeper. Tired of being afraid, tired of counting pennies, tired of seeing pity or disgust or careful blankness in people's eyes when they looked at her, tired of feeling like she was failing her daughter every single day. "Excuse me?" Emma's eyes snapped open. The man from yesterday stood a few feet away, holding several shopping bags. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair that was starting to grey at the temples. He wore jeans and a casual jacket, but something about the way he carried himself suggested money, confidence, the kind of ease that came from never having to worry about where your next meal was coming from. Emma's grip tightened on Sophie. "I am not doing anything wrong," she said, her voice defensive. "I am a paying customer." The man looked startled. "I know, I did not. That is not why I came over." He paused, seeming to gather himself. "I saw you here yesterday, at the checkout. I think you might have dropped something." He held out one of the bags. Emma stared at it, confusion warring with suspicion. "I did not drop anything." "Are you sure? Because I found this right after you left, and I thought." He trailed off, then tried again. "Look, I know this is weird, but I have a daughter and I saw you with your baby and I just thought you might need some things." Emma's face flushed hot. "I do not need charity." "It is not charity," the man said quickly. "It is just, look, my office was doing a donation drive for families in need, and we ended up with extra supplies. My assistant was going to take them to a shelter, but if you could use them, it would save her a trip." It was such an obvious lie that Emma almost laughed, but she looked down at Sophie, at the near-empty formula bottle, at the thin blanket and worn clothes. She thought about the long night ahead, about the cold that would seep through the shelter walls, about all the things her daughter needed that she could not provide. "What is in the bag?" she asked, finally. "Formula, the kind you were looking at yesterday. Some baby food, diapers, a few other things." The man's voice was careful, neutral, no strings attached. "You can take it or not. Either way, I will leave you alone." Emma studied his face, looking for hidden motives, for the catch she knew had to be there. Men did not just give things away for nothing. Everyone wanted something. But his eyes were steady, almost sad, and there was no calculation in his expression. Just a strange kind of earnestness that she did not know what to do with. "Why?" she asked. The man was quiet for a moment. "Because someone helped me once when I really needed it, and because your daughter looks about the same age my daughter was when my wife died, and because it is just formula and diapers. It is not that complicated." Emma felt something crack inside her chest, some wall she had built to keep herself upright and moving forward. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to throw his pity back in his face and walk away with her pride intact. But pride was a luxury she could not afford, not when it came to Sophie's well-being. "Okay," she said quietly, "thank you." The man handed her the bag and she took it with trembling hands. He stepped back immediately, giving her space. "There are a couple more bags in my car if you want them, clothes, blankets, but I understand if you would rather I just left." Emma looked at the bag in her hands, at the purple container of formula visible through the plastic. She thought about Sophie sleeping in the cold shelter, about the thin blanket that barely kept her warm, About all the nights Emma had lain awake worrying about whether she was doing enough. "Where is your car?" she asked. The man's face broke into a relieved smile. "Just outside, I will be quick." He disappeared through the store entrance, and Emma stood there holding the bag, wondering if she had just made a terrible mistake. But then the man returned with 2 more bags, set them down beside her without ceremony, and stepped back again. "I am James, by the way," he said, "James Mitchell." "Emma," she replied, "this is Sophie." James glanced at the baby, his expression softening. "She is beautiful." "How old?" 8 months. "My daughter Lily is 5. She never stops talking or moving." He paused. "I should let you go, but if you need anything else, anything at all, here is my card. My office number is on there." He held out a business card, and Emma took it automatically. She glanced down at it. Mitchell Technologies, CEO and founder. Her stomach twisted. She had accepted charity from a rich man who probably spent more on coffee every morning than she had to live on for a week. "I have to go," she said abruptly, gathering the bags. "Of course," James said. "Take care, Emma." She left the store quickly, her face burning. She made it 3 blocks before she had to stop, overwhelmed by a tangle of emotions she could not name. Gratitude, shame, relief, anger. She leaned against a brick wall and let herself cry, just for a moment, while Sophie slept peacefully against her chest, unaware that her mother had just accepted help from a stranger. That night at the shelter, Emma unpacked the bags in her small curtained area. Formula, diapers, baby food, wipes. A package of soft onesies in Sophie's size, 2 fleece blankets, a stuffed rabbit that looked expensive. She ran her hands over each item, part of her still waiting for someone to appear and demand payment, demand something in return. But no one came. It was just supplies, just things Sophie needed. Emma mixed a bottle of formula and fed her daughter, watching her drink with the kind of fierce concentration that babies had. Sophie's eyes were heavy, already drifting closed. Emma wrapped her in one of the new blankets, soft and warm, and held her close. "You are okay," Emma whispered. "We are going to be okay." She wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe that accepting help did not make her weak, that one act of kindness did not obligate her to anything, that maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world who helped without expecting anything in return. She wanted to believe a lot of things. Whether she could was another question entirely. The next day, Emma found herself thinking about James Mitchell more than she wanted to admit. She looked up his company online at the library, found articles about his success, photos of him at charity events and technology conferences. He was exactly who he seemed to be, a self-made businessman, a widower, a father. There were no scandals, no hints of anything inappropriate. Just a man who had built something from nothing and apparently sometimes gave baby supplies to strangers in grocery stores. It was strange. It was unsettling. It was also the first thing in a long time that had given her something like hope, and Emma was not sure what to do with that feeling. She tucked his business card into her pocket and tried not to think about it. But over the next few days, as she used the formula he had given her, as she wrapped Sophie in the warm blankets, she found herself grateful in a way that felt uncomfortable and necessary all at once. Maybe the world was not entirely cold. Maybe sometimes people helped just because they could. Maybe, Emma thought, allowing herself to consider the possibility for the first time in months, maybe she did not have to do this completely alone. James had not planned to go back to that neighborhood. He had given Emma the supplies, she had accepted them, and that should have been the end of it. He could feel good about helping someone in need and move on with his life. But somehow, he found himself driving through those streets every few days, telling himself he was just taking a different route home or exploring a new lunch spot. The truth was harder to admit. He wanted to see if she was okay. He wanted to know if the supplies had been enough. He wanted something he could not quite name. It was Lily who forced the situation to a head. On Saturday morning, she insisted on going to the farmer's market, something Sarah used to do with her. James rarely went, the crowds and chaos feeling too much like grief. But Lily had been asking for weeks, so he bundled her into the car and drove downtown, prepared for a difficult morning of memories. Instead, he saw Emma. She was standing at a vegetable stall, sorting produce, while Sophie. slept against her chest. The morning sun cut through the clouds and caught her profile, and James felt something shift in his chest. Lily, ever observant, followed his gaze. "Daddy, who is that lady?" she asked, her voice carrying in the way children's voices always did. Emma looked up at the sound, her eyes meeting James's across the crowded market. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Lily, with the fearlessness of a 5-year-old, marched right up to her. "Is that your baby?" Lily demanded. "Can I see?" "Lily," James said, catching up to his daughter. "I am sorry. She does not understand boundaries yet." Emma's expression was guarded, but she looked down at Lily with something like curiosity. "She is sleeping right now. Maybe another time." "What is her name?" Lily persisted. "I am Lily, that is my daddy. His name is James, but everyone calls him Mr. Mitchell except me because I am special." Despite herself, Emma smiled slightly. "Her name is Sophie." "That is a pretty name," Lily announced. "I have a friend named Sophie at school, but she picks her nose and eats it, so I do not play with her very much." "Is your Sophie nice?" Emma laughed, and the sound startled James. It transformed her face, made her look younger, less worn down by the world. "She is very nice. She mostly sleeps and drinks milk and makes interesting sounds." Lily giggled. "Babies are funny. Can we be friends?" Mr. Chen appeared from the back of the stall, sizing up James and Lily with shrewd eyes. "You know these people?" he asked Emma. "Sort of," Emma said. "This is James. He helped me out the other day." Mr. Chen nodded slowly. "You come back in 10 minutes, he told Emma. "Take your break." Before Emma could protest, Lily had grabbed her hand. "Come see the flower stall. They have sunflowers, and Daddy never buys me flowers, even though I ask very nicely." James watched his daughter drag Emma through the market, chattering non-stop, and something in him relaxed. He had been right about Lily. She had a way of breaking through walls that adults had spent years building. By the time they reached the flower stall, Emma was smiling openly, responding to Lily's endless stream of questions with surprising patience. "Your daughter is very friendly," Emma said to James as Lily debated between tulips and daisies with deep seriousness. "She has never met a stranger," James replied. "I am sorry if she is overwhelming. She is sweet." Emma paused. "Thank you again for the supplies. They have been really helpful." "I am glad," James said. "And I meant what I said. If you need anything else, my offer stands." Emma looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" "Real reason, not the story about a donation drive." James considered lying, then decided against it. "Because I know what it is like to feel alone. And because I have more than enough and you clearly need help, and that seems like a simple enough equation. Nothing is ever that simple. Maybe it should be." Lily interrupted by thrusting a bunch of sunflowers at Emma. "These are for you and Sophie." "Daddy, buy them." "Lily, you cannot just give people flowers," James started, but Emma was already shaking her head. "That is very sweet, but I cannot accept them." "Why not?" Lily asked, genuinely confused. "They are pretty and everyone likes pretty things." Emma opened her mouth, then closed it. James saw her struggle with how to explain pride and poverty to a 5-year-old. He made a decision. "How about this?" he said. "Lily wants to give you flowers, and I was going to buy her some anyway because she asked nicely. We will get 2 bunches. One for you, one for her. That way everyone gets flowers and no one has to feel weird about it." Emma looked like she wanted to argue, but Lily was already bouncing with excitement. "Please," Lily begged. "Please, please, please." "Okay," Emma said finally. "Thank you." They left the market together, James carrying a bag of vegetables he had insisted on buying from Mr. Chen, Lily holding her sunflowers and skipping between the 2 adults. When they reached James's car, Lily tugged on Emma's sleeve. "Can Sophie come play at our house? We have lots of toys and a nice yard, and Rebecca makes really good cookies." "Lily, that is not," James started. "I would like that," Emma said quietly, and James looked at her in surprise. "But maybe another time, okay? Sophie and I have some things to do today." Lily pouted but did not argue. "Promise, I promise." Over the next few weeks, Emma kept that promise. Slowly, carefully, she began to let James and Lily into her life. They met at parks, at the library, at coffee shops where James would buy sandwiches that Emma would accept with less resistance each time. Lily and Sophie became as close as an 8-month-old and a 5-year-old could be, with Lily treating the baby like a living doll and Emma watching with cautious affection. James learned that Emma had dreams beyond survival. She wanted to finish her college degree, wanted to work with vulnerable families, wanted to give Sophie the kind of life she herself had never quite had. She talked about her grandmother sometimes, about the small house in Tacoma, where she had felt safe for a few years. She never mentioned Sophie's father, and James did not ask. Emma learned that James was lonelier than he admitted, that he threw himself into work to avoid the empty house, that Lily was the only thing keeping him grounded, that he still wore his wedding ring even though Sarah had been gone for 3 years. She learned that he was patient, thoughtful, and had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. She learned that he never made her feel less than, never treated her like a project or a good deed. But not everyone was happy about the developing friendship. Victoria Pierce noticed immediately when James started leaving work early, when he took longer lunches, when his attention seemed divided. At first she said nothing, but her observations were careful, calculating. Victoria had her own reasons for wanting James's full focus. Mitchell Technologies was at a critical growth point, and she needed her partner present and committed. More than that, though Victoria would never say it out loud, she had always imagined that someday, once enough time had passed, she and James might become more than business partners. She had been patient, waiting for him to heal, waiting for the right moment. This unexpected complication with some homeless woman was not part of her plan. "James, we need to talk about your schedule," Victoria said one afternoon, cornering him in his office. "You have missed 3 executive meetings in the past 2 weeks. That is not like you. I know. I've had some personal things to deal with," James said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Personal things?" Victoria's voice sharpened. "What kind of personal things? Is everything okay with Lily?" "Lily is fine. It is nothing you need to worry about. If it is affecting your work, then yes, I do need to worry about it. We are about to close the biggest deal this company has ever seen. I need you present, James. Not physically here, but mentally somewhere else." James sighed. "You are right. I will do better." But he did not do better. If anything, he became more distracted, because he had realized something that scared him. He was not just helping Emma anymore. He was not just being kind to someone in need. He was falling for her strength, for the way she loved Sophie with fierce determination, for the glimpses of the person she might have been if life had been kinder. He was falling for her, and he had no idea what to do about it. Emma, meanwhile, was struggling with her own feelings. James had become important to her in ways that felt dangerous. She had learned not to depend on anyone, not to trust promises, not to believe that good things could last. But James kept showing up. He never pushed, never demanded anything, never made her feel like she owed him. He just kept being there, steady and solid, and it terrified her. One evening, after another afternoon at the park with Lily, Emma confided in Maria, a woman at the shelter who had become something like a friend. "I think I am making a mistake," Emma said, watching Sophie sleep. "I am letting him into our lives. And what happens when he gets tired of playing savior? What happens when he realizes I am just too much work?" "Maybe he will not," Maria said. "Maybe he is one of the good ones. There are no good ones." Emma's voice was bitter. "Everyone wants something eventually. Then stop seeing him. Protect yourself." But Emma could not do that, because somewhere along the way, between the parks and the coffee shops and Lily's endless chatter, she had started to hope again. And hope, she was discovering, was harder to kill than she had thought. The idea came to James at 3 in the morning, the way most of his best ideas did. He had been lying awake thinking about Emma, about the dozens or hundreds or thousands of other people in similar situations, about how much money sat in his bank account, doing nothing particularly meaningful. He got up, went to his home office and started making notes. By sunrise, he had the framework for something that felt important, a foundation. Not just another charity writing checks to existing programs, but something hands-on, something focused on single parents, particularly mothers, who had fallen through the cracks. Housing assistance, job training, childcare support, educational opportunities, all the things that made the difference between surviving and actually living. All the things Emma needed but had nowhere to get. The more he thought about it, the more right it felt. This was something he could actually do, something concrete and meaningful. He could use his resources, his connections, his business experience to create something that lasted beyond a bag. A formula at a grocery store. He spent the next week researching, talking to non-profits, consulting with lawyers about the best way to structure it. Marcus told him he had lost his mind, but supported him anyway. Victoria was less enthusiastic. A foundation? Victoria repeated, when James brought it up at their weekly strategy meeting. Since when are you interested in non-profit work? Since I realized I could do more with my money than just make more money, James said. I have been thinking about this for a while. I want to focus on single mothers, families in crisis. There is a real need, Victoria. There are a lot of real needs, James. That does not mean you personally have to solve all of them. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. This is about that woman, is it not? The one you have been spending time with. James stiffened. Her name is Emma. And yes, knowing her has made me more aware of the issues. But this is bigger than one person, is it? Because from where I sit, it looks like you are building an entire foundation to help your new girlfriend. She is not my girlfriend. We are friends. And even if we were more, so what? Is that not how most philanthropy starts? Someone cares about an issue because it affects someone they know. Victoria sighed. I am not saying do not do it. I am saying be careful. The optics matter. If it looks like you are funneling company resources to benefit someone you are personally involved with, that is a problem. For you, for the company, for everyone. I will keep it separate, James promised. This will be my personal money, my personal time. It will not affect Mitchell Technologies. But it did affect Mitchell Technologies, because everything James did affected the company. He started coming in late, leaving early, his mind clearly somewhere else. Victoria watched it happen with growing frustration and something darker. She had built this company alongside James. She had sacrificed relationships, time, her own health to make Mitchell Technologies what it was. And now he was distracted by some woman he barely knew, some woman who probably saw him as nothing more than a meal ticket. Victoria began making discreet inquiries. It was not hard to find information. Emma Harrison, 26. No permanent address, receiving public assistance. Daughter of Daniel Harrison, Army veteran, missing in action in Haiti. Presumed lost after an earthquake while on humanitarian deployment. Mother deceased. Raised by grandmother who passed away 3 years prior. No criminal record, no red flags, just poverty and bad luck. On paper, Emma was exactly what she appeared to be. Someone struggling through no real fault of her own. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Victoria more suspicious. Perfect victims rarely existed. Everyone had an angle, everyone wanted something. What was Emma's angle? What did she really want from James? Victoria resolved to keep watching, keep waiting. Eventually, everyone showed their true colors. Meanwhile, Emma was experiencing something she had almost forgotten what it felt like to have options. James had connected her with a social worker through his preliminary foundation work, and suddenly doors were opening. There was a spot available in a transitional housing program. There were job training opportunities. There was subsidized childcare so she could actually take classes or work. For the first time in 8 months, Emma could see a path forward that did not involve sleeping in shelters and counting pennies. It was overwhelming. It was wonderful. It was also terrifying, because the more she rebuilt her life, the more she had to lose. She kept waiting for something to go wrong, for the offers to be withdrawn, for someone to decide she was not worth the investment. Old habits were hard to break. You are allowed to be happy, James told her one afternoon as they watched Lily and Sophie play in his backyard. Rebecca had offered to watch the girls while they talked, giving them rare privacy. You know that, right? I do not know that I believe in happiness anymore, Emma admitted. I believe in survival. I believe in making it through the day. Happiness feels like something other people get to have. You are other people, Emma, am I? Because most days I still feel like I'm pretending to be a real person. Like any minute someone is going to realize I do not actually belong anywhere. James reached over and took her hand, the first time he had really touched her beyond accidental brushes. His palm was warm, solid. You belong here. You belong in your housing program, in your classes, in any future you want to build. You belong in Sophie's life, obviously. And if you want, he paused, his voice dropping lower, you belong in our lives too. Mine and Lily's. Emma looked at their joined hands, feeling her chest tighten. I do not know how to do this, she whispered. I do not know how to let someone care about me. I do not know how to trust that it will not all fall apart. Then we will figure it out together. James squeezed her hand gently. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I'm not going to get tired of you or decide you are too much work. I am here because I want to be here. Why? Emma pulled her hand back, suddenly needing distance. Why do you want this? You could have anyone. You could date someone with a career. Someone who could go to your fancy company parties and fit into your world. Someone who does not come with all my baggage. I do not want anyone else. James's voice was steady. I want you. Your strength, your determination. The way you love Sophie despite everything. The way you are still fighting when you have every reason to give up. That is who I want. Emma felt tears burning her eyes. You do not know me. Not really. You know the version of me that I show you. You do not know all the ugly parts, then show me. James leaned forward. Show me the ugly parts and let me decide if I can handle them. Before Emma could respond, Lily came running over, Sophie balanced on her hip with surprising competence for a 5-year-old. Daddy, Sophie needs her bottle and Rebecca says I can help if Emma says it is okay. It is okay, Emma said, her voice unsteady. Thank you for being so helpful, Lily. Lily beamed and carried Sophie back toward the house with Rebecca hovering nervously behind her. James and Emma sat in silence for a moment. She really loves Sophie, Emma said finally. She really loves you too, James replied. She asked me last week if you could be her new mommy. Emma's breath caught. James, I cannot. That is too much. I cannot replace your wife. I am not asking you to replace anyone. Sarah will always be Lily's mother, but that does not mean there is not room in Lily's life, in our life, for someone else, for you. I need to think, Emma said, standing abruptly. I need to process all of this. Take all the time you need, James said. But Emma, while you are thinking, remember that you deserve good things. You deserve love and stability and a future. You deserve all of it. Emma left shortly after, her mind spinning. On the bus ride back to her new transitional housing, she held Sophie close and tried to sort through her feelings. She was falling in love with James. She had probably been falling for weeks without admitting it to herself. And Lily, sweet, insistent Lily, had worked her way into Emma's heart just as thoroughly. But loving them meant making herself vulnerable. It meant trusting that this time things would not fall apart. That night, Emma pulled out a small box from her belongings. Inside were the few things she had from her father. His dog tags, a photo of him in uniform, a letter he had written to her grandmother before his final deployment. She read the letter slowly, his words familiar after so many readings. He wrote about duty, about helping people who needed it, about making the world a little bit better in whatever way you could. He wrote about courage not being the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Emma touched the dog tags, feeling the cool metal under her fingers. Her father had spent his life helping people. He had gone to Haiti to provide aid after the earthquake, to build shelters and distribute supplies, and offer hope to people who had nothing. He had disappeared doing that work, and she had always thought it was a senseless loss. But maybe it was not. Maybe his choice to help, even when it cost him everything, meant something. Maybe Emma thought she could honor that by letting herself be helped. By accepting that James's desire to make her life better was not charity or pity, but the same impulse that had driven her father, the desire to do good in the world, to help where help was needed. And maybe she could trust that. The next day Emma called James. I want to try, she said without preamble. I want to try letting you in, letting this be real. It scares me, but I want to try. She could hear the smile in James's voice. That is all I am asking for, just try. We will figure out the rest as we go. And they did try. Over the following weeks, Emma and James built something tentative and real. They went on actual dates, awkward at first because Emma was not sure how to be someone's girlfriend, when she was still figuring out how to be stable. But James was patient, giving her space when she needed it, being there when she did not. Lily continued to be their unexpected cheerleader, wholly confident that Emma belonged with them. But Victoria was still watching, and Victoria was not patient. She saw James slipping further away from the company, saw resources being directed toward this new foundation, saw him looking at Emma with an expression she had never seen on his face before. It was time, Victoria decided, to take action. If James would not see reason, she would have to make him see. She would have to show him exactly what kind of mistake he was making. For his own good, of course. Always for his own good. The Mitchell Technologies annual gala was the event of the season for Seattle's tech community. Held at the Four Seasons, It drew investors, partners, and industry leaders from across the country. James had been attending and later hosting this gala for 8 years. It was business, networking, all the things he was good at. This year, for the first time since Sarah's passing, he had asked someone to accompany him. He had asked Emma. Emma had tried to refuse. "I do not belong at something like that," she had said, panic clear in her voice. "I do not have the right clothes. I do not know how to talk to those people. I will just embarrass you." "You could never embarrass me," James had replied. "And I will buy you a dress. Consider it a uniform for the evening. No different than if you were working an event. Please, Emma, I want you there. I want people to meet you." So Emma had agreed, though every instinct told her it was a mistake. The dress James bought was beautiful, simple and elegant in deep blue. A stylist had come to her apartment to help with her hair and makeup. When Emma looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like someone who belonged in James's world. But looking the part and being the part were two different things. The gala itself was overwhelming. Chandeliers, champagne, people in expensive clothes discussing investments and market trends. James stayed close to Emma, introducing her simply as a friend, his hand a steady presence at the small of her back. Some people were kind. Others looked at her with curiosity, barely concealed behind polite smiles. Emma could feel them calculating, trying to figure out who she was and why she was there. Victoria had been watching them all evening with cold calculation. She had planned this carefully, waiting for the right moment. When James stepped away to take a phone call from a major investor, Victoria made her move. She found Emma standing alone near the balcony doors, clearly uncomfortable in the crowd. "Emma, is it?" Victoria said, her smile sharp. "I do not think we have been properly introduced. I am Victoria Pierce, James's business partner." "Nice to meet you," Emma said cautiously. "You know, it is funny," Victoria continued, her voice casual but her eyes hard. "I have known James for 8 years, built this company with him from nothing. And in all that time, I have never seen him quite so distracted as he has been these past few months. Not even after Sarah passed away." Emma stiffened. "I am not sure what you are implying." "I am not implying anything. I am stating facts. James has been spending company time and resources on personal projects, specifically on a foundation that seems designed to benefit one particular person, you." Victoria took a sip of her champagne. "Tell me, Emma, how long have you been homeless? How long have you been looking for someone to save you?" Emma's face flushed hot. "It is not like that, no? Then what is it like? A wealthy man conveniently appears when you are at your lowest point. He showers you with help, with attention, with money. He creates an entire foundation that just happens to provide exactly what you need. And in return, what? You play the role of grateful girlfriend. You give him purpose, make him feel good about himself. It is a transaction, Emma, even if you are both pretending otherwise." "You do not know anything about me," Emma said, her voice shaking. "You do not know anything about us. I know that James is making decisions with his heart instead of his head, and that is dangerous. For him, for the company, for everyone who depends on Mitchell Technologies." Victoria leaned closer. "How long do you think this will last? How long before he realizes that charity is not the same as love? That feeling sorry for someone is not the same as wanting to build a life with them?" Before Emma could respond, Victoria straightened and raised her voice slightly, just enough that nearby conversations paused. Of course, everyone has their own story. Emma here, for instance, was homeless just a few months ago, living in shelters with her baby. James has been incredibly generous in helping her get back on her feet. It is really quite inspiring how he is using his resources to make a difference in individual lives. The words were complimentary, but the tone was not. The implication was clear. Emma was a charity case, a project. Someone James had rescued out of pity, not someone who belonged in this world on her own merit. The people nearby heard it. Emma could see the realization dawning on their faces, the reassessment of who and what she was. "Victoria, that is enough," James said, appearing at Emma's side. His face was hard, angrier than Emma had ever seen him. "I'm just making conversation," Victoria said innocently, "sharing your wonderful philanthropic work. You should be proud of what you are doing for Emma and her daughter." "What I should do is ask you to leave," James said coldly. "This is inappropriate, Victoria." "Completely inappropriate, is it? I am simply stating facts. Facts that everyone here will know eventually anyway. You cannot keep your personal life separate from your business life, James. Not when you are using company events to introduce your charity project as your date. Emma felt like she could not breathe. Every eye in the vicinity was on her now, assessing, judging. She could see pity, curiosity, contempt. She had been so stupid to think she could fit here, to think she could be anything other than what she was, a poor girl who did not belong, who James had taken pity on, who Victoria had just exposed in front of everyone. "I need to leave," Emma said quietly. "James, I need to leave now." "Emma, wait," James started, but she was already moving toward the exit, almost running. She heard James call after her, heard Victoria's voice saying something else, but she could not process any of it. She just needed to get out, to breathe, to escape the weight of all those stairs. Outside, the cool Seattle air hit her face, and Emma bent over, hands on her knees, trying to calm her racing heart. James appeared moments later, his jacket gone, his hair disheveled. "Emma, I am so sorry. Victoria had no right to do that. She was completely out of line. She was not wrong, though, was she?" Emma straightened, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "That is what everyone is going to think. That I am just some homeless woman you picked up to feel better about yourself. That this is all just charity dressed up as something more. That is not what this is," James said firmly. "You know that is not what this is, do I?" Emma's voice cracked. "Because right now I am not sure of anything. I'm not sure why you are doing this, why you care, what you actually want from me. Maybe Victoria is right. Maybe you are just trying to be a hero and I am a convenient victim to save. Is that really what you think of me?" James looked wounded. "After everything, you think I am that shallow? I do not know what to think." Emma shouted, then lowered her voice, aware they were still near the hotel entrance. "I do not know how to be this person, James. The person who wears expensive dresses and goes to galas. The person who dates successful businessmen. I am still the woman who was counting pennies at a grocery store 4 months ago. That does not just go away because you decided to help me. I am not asking it to go away. I am not asking you to be anyone other than who you are. But who am I?" Emma asked, tears finally spilling over. "I do not even know anymore. Am I Emma Harrison, your girlfriend? Or am I Emma Harrison, your charity project? Because the way Victoria described it, the way everyone at that party is going to describe it, I am the girl you rescued. I am the homeless woman who got lucky. And maybe that is all I am." "Stop it," James said, reaching for her, but Emma stepped back. "I think I need some space. I need to figure out what I actually want, separate from what you want for me. I need to know if I can do this, if I can be with you without feeling like I am always just one step away from being that woman in the grocery store again." "Emma, please." "I will call you," Emma said, already backing away. "I just need some time." She left him standing there, hailed a cab with shaking hands and went home to her small apartment where Sophie was sleeping peacefully under Rebecca's watch. Emma paid Rebecca, thanked her, and then sat on the floor of her bedroom and cried harder than she had in months. She cried for her father, for her grandmother, for all the versions of herself she had lost along the way. She cried because she had started to believe in happy endings, and Victoria had reminded her with brutal efficiency that girls like her did not get those. Over the next week, Emma avoided James's calls. She went to her classes, took care of Sophie, tried to focus on building her life independent of him. But it was harder than she expected, because Lily kept asking for her, because James sent texts that were kind but not pushy, giving her space but making sure she knew he was still there, because despite everything, she missed him with an ache that felt physical. Maria at the shelter tried to reason with her. So some bitter woman said some cruel things at a party. So what? You know the truth. You know what you and James have, but do I? Emma asked. Maybe I have been lying to myself. Maybe this was always going to fail. Or maybe you are scared, Maria said bluntly. Maybe you are scared of being happy, so you are sabotaging it before it can hurt you first. Emma could not deny that. Fear had been her constant companion for so long that she did not know how to live without it. The fear of not having enough, of failing Sophie, of ending up back on the streets, and now a new fear. The fear that loving James meant losing herself, becoming dependent, giving up the hard-won independence she had fought for. But independence meant being alone. And Emma was tired of being alone. She was tired of fighting everything by herself. She was tired of assuming the worst of people, of waiting for them to leave, of building walls to protect a heart that was already broken in so many places. Maybe, she thought, maybe it was time to be brave in a different way. Not the bravery of survival, but the bravery of trust. The bravery of letting someone stay. James stood in his office staring at an old photograph he had not looked at in years. It showed a group of volunteers in Haiti, young people who had gone to help after the earthquake. He was 17 in the photo, gangly and sunburned, standing next to a man in an army uniform, Captain Daniel Harrison, the man who had saved his life. James had not made the connection at first. Emma had mentioned her father was a veteran who went missing in Haiti, but Haiti was a big place, and there had been hundreds of military personnel there during the disaster. It was not until he had seen Emma's father's name on some paperwork for the foundation, until he had looked up the details of Daniel Harrison's service record, that the pieces had fallen into place. Captain Harrison, the quiet, steady officer who had pulled James from a collapsed building, who had stayed with him for 6 hours until rescue teams could reach them, who had told stories to keep a terrified teenager calm while they waited in the dark. That Captain Harrison was Emma's father. The revelation had hit James like a physical blow. This was why he had felt so drawn to Emma from the first moment he saw her. Not just empathy, not just attraction, but recognition. She had her father's eyes, his determined expression, his refusal to give up even when everything was falling apart. James had not consciously recognized the similarity, but some part of him had known. Some part of him had seen Daniel Harrison in his daughter and had responded to a debt 15 years old. He had not told Emma. He had not known how to tell her, how to explain that his help was not random chance, but connected to her father's heroism. Would she believe him? Would she think he was making it up? That he was trying to justify his actions somehow? And then Victoria's attack at the gala had happened, and Emma had pulled away, and James had lost his chance to explain. Now, sitting alone in his office with that old photograph, James knew he had to tell her. Even if she did not want to hear it, even if she had decided they had no future together, she deserved to know about her father. She deserved to know that Daniel Harrison had been a hero, not just to his country, but to the boy who had grown up to try, in some small way, to repay that debt. James picked up his phone and called Marcus. "I need your help," he said. "I need to find someone who served in Haiti with Captain Daniel Harrison. Someone who might have letters, personal effects, anything that belonged to him." Marcus did not ask questions. "Give me 48 hours. It took Marcus 72 hours, but he delivered. A former colleague of Daniel Harrison, a woman named Angela Rodriguez, who now ran a veterans organization in Portland. She had a box of Captain Harrison's personal effects, things that had been shipped back after he was declared missing, things that had never been claimed because there was no next of kin who could be located at the time. Emma had been in foster care then, lost in the system, and her grandmother had been in no condition to deal with the military bureaucracy. James drove to Portland on a Friday, met Angela in a small coffee shop, and listened to her stories about Daniel Harrison. "He was the best of us," Angela said, her eyes distant with memory. "Always first to volunteer, last to leave. He believed in helping people, really believed it. When that aftershock hit and we got separated, I thought..." She paused. "I thought we had lost him. We searched for days, but there was so much rubble, so much chaos." "I'm sorry," James said quietly. Angela pushed a box across the table. "His daughter should have these. There are letters he wrote but never sent, photos, his journal. He wrote about her all the time, about how proud he was of her, about his hopes for her future. She should know that." James took the box with careful hands. "Thank you for keeping these safe." That night back in Seattle, James read every letter, every journal entry. Daniel Harrison's voice came through clearly, warm and thoughtful, and so similar to Emma that it made James's chest ache. He wrote about his daughter's intelligence, her strength, her kind heart. He wrote about his fears that his military career meant missing too much of her childhood. He wrote about wanting to make the world better for her generation, about believing that service meant something. One letter, written just days before he disappeared, was addressed directly to Emma. James read it 3 times, tears blurring his vision. It needed to be delivered. Emma needed to read her father's words, needed to know how deeply she had been loved, needed to understand that her father's sacrifice had meant something. The foundation gala was scheduled for the following weekend. James had been planning it for months, a launch event to officially announce the Harrison Legacy Foundation, named in honor of Daniel Harrison. It was meant to be a celebration, a beginning. Now it would be something more. It would be the moment he told Emma the truth, gave her the letters, and hoped that she could forgive him for not telling her sooner. James called Emma. He had given her space for 2 weeks, had respected her request for distance, even though it felt like dying slowly. Now he needed to see her. "I know you asked for time," he said when she answered, "and I respect that. But I need you to come to the foundation gala next Saturday. Please, Emma, I have something important to tell you, something about your father." Emma's voice was cautious. "What about my father?" "I cannot tell you over the phone. I need to tell you in person. But I promise you, Emma, this is important. Will you come?" There was a long silence. "Then, okay, I will come." The week leading up to the gala felt endless. James prepared his speech, revised it a dozen times, practiced in front of Marcus, who told him to stop overthinking and just speak from the heart. Lily, sensing her father's tension, became clingy and anxious. She missed Emma, asked about her constantly, did not understand why Emma had stopped coming over. "Is Emma mad at us?" Lily asked one night at bedtime. "No, sweetheart. Emma is not mad. She is just going through some difficult things and she needs some time to figure them out. But she is coming back, right? Because I miss her. And I think Sophie misses me." James held his daughter close. "I hope so. I really hope so." The night of the gala arrived. It was held at a hotel in Capitol Hill, smaller and more intimate than the Mitchell Technologies event. The focus was not on business but on community, on the families the foundation would serve, on creating real change. Emma arrived late, slipping in through a side door. James saw her immediately, felt the air shift when she entered the room. She wore a simple dress, her hair pulled back, her expression guarded but present. "Thank you for coming," James said, approaching her carefully. "How are you?" "I am okay." Emma's smile did not quite reach her eyes, still figuring things out. "But I am here like I promised." The program began. James gave his speech about the purpose of the foundation, about helping single parents and vulnerable families, about creating opportunities instead of just providing handouts. He spoke about how the foundation was named for Captain Daniel Harrison, a veteran who had dedicated his life to service, who had disappeared while helping others in Haiti. He watched Emma's face as he spoke, saw confusion, then dawning realization, then something that might have been hope or fear, or both. Then James changed course. "What I have not told most people," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "is that Captain Harrison saved my life. I was 17, volunteering in Haiti after the earthquake. I should not have been there. I was too young and too stupid to understand the real danger. When an aftershock hit, a building collapsed on top of me. I was trapped for 6 hours before rescue teams could get to me. Captain Harrison stayed with me the entire time. He kept me calm, kept me talking, kept me believing that help would come. Without him, I would have died in that rubble. I owe him everything." The room was silent now, everyone listening. Emma's eyes were locked on James, wide and disbelieving. "I did not know Emma was Daniel Harrison's daughter when I first met her," James continued. "I met her at a grocery store, and I helped her because it was the right thing to do. But as I got to know her, I saw her father in her. The same determination, the same refusal to give up, the same strength. And when I learned who her father was, everything made sense. I am not helping Emma to repay a debt, though that debt exists. I am helping Emma because she deserves help, because her father's daughter deserves every opportunity to thrive, because he paused, his voice breaking slightly, because I love her. And I want to give her what her father would have wanted her to have, a chance, a future, hope." Angela Rodriguez stepped forward then, holding the box of Daniel Harrison's effects. She approached Emma, who looked like she might collapse. "Your father wanted you to have these," Angela said gently, offering the box. "He talked about you all the time, Emma. He was so proud of you. He would be proud of the woman you have become." Emma took the box with shaking hands. James approached, pulled out the letter her father had written, the one addressed to her. "Read this," he said quietly. "Please." Emma opened the letter, her eyes scanning the familiar handwriting she had not seen in over a decade. James watched her face as she read, saw tears begin to fall. The letter was long, full of love and advice and hope. Daniel Harrison had written about courage, about never giving up, about building a life worth living even when the world seemed impossibly hard. He had written about wanting Emma to find love, to have children, to pursue her dreams. He had written about believing in her completely. When Emma finished reading, she looked up at James, tears streaming down her face. "You knew," she whispered. "All this time you knew? I only found out a few weeks ago. I wanted to tell you, but then everything happened with Victoria, and you needed space, and James, stopped. I should have told you sooner. I am sorry." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something James did not expect. She laughed, a wet, broken sound. "My father saved your life. You have been helping me because my father saved you. It is like something out of a movie." "It is real," James said. "All of it is real. My gratitude to your father, yes, but also my feelings for you. Those are real too, Emma, completely separate from anything else. I love you. Not because of your father, not because I feel obligated, but because you are extraordinary. Because you are strong and brave and you love Sophie with everything you have. Because you make Lily laugh and you make me want to be better. I love you, Emma Harrison. And I am hoping," he took her hand gently, "that maybe you feel the same way." Emma looked down at their joined hands, then back at his face. "I do," she said softly. "I love you too. I am terrified of it and I do not know how to trust it, but I do love you." "Then trust this," James said. "Trust that I am here, that I am not leaving, that we are going to figure this out together. Trust that your father would want you to be happy, to let someone help carry the weight. Trust that you deserve this." The days following the gala felt surreal to Emma. She read her father's letters over and over, memorizing every word, every piece of advice, every expression of love. He had believed in her even when she had stopped believing in herself. He had known she would face difficulties, and he had trusted she would overcome them. Reading his words felt like having him back, if only for a moment, and it changed something fundamental inside her. She also spent time with James, real time, without the weight of secrets between them. They talked about his time in Haiti, about the hours trapped in darkness, about how her father's steady voice had been the only thing keeping him from panic. They talked about Daniel Harrison's disappearance, about the memorial service Emma's grandmother had held, about the grief that never quite healed because there was no closure. They talked about moving forward, about what it meant to honor the past while building something new. But the most important conversation happened with Lily. Emma had been avoiding the little girl, not wanting to confuse her or make promises she might not be able to keep. But Lily, as always, took matters into her own hands. She appeared at Emma's apartment one Saturday morning with James, Rebecca, and a handmade card. "I made this for you," Lily announced, pushing past Emma into the small living room where Sophie was playing with blocks on the floor. "It is an apology card because you were sad and went away, and I did not know how to make you not sad." The card was covered in glitter and stickers, with a drawing of stick figures labeled Daddy, Me, Emma, and Sophie. Lily had drawn them all holding hands with a rainbow overhead and hearts everywhere. "Lily, this is beautiful," Emma said, her throat tight. "But you do not need to apologize. You did not do anything wrong. Then why did you go away?" Lily's bottom lip trembled. "Did I do something bad?" "No, sweetheart." Emma knelt down to Lily's level. "I went away because I was scared. Sometimes grown-ups get scared of good things, and we make silly decisions because we do not know how to handle being scared." "What were you scared of?" "I was scared that if I loved you and your daddy too much, something bad might happen and I would lose you. Like I lost my daddy and my grandma. I was scared that I did not deserve to have a family again." "That is really silly," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Everyone deserves a family. Daddy says so all the time. And you already are family. You just have to stop being scared and let it be true." Emma laughed, wiping at her eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "I am 5 3/4, Lily said seriously. "That is almost 6. I know lots of things." Sophie, who had been watching this exchange with wide eyes, chose that moment to crawl over to Lily and pull herself up using Lily's legs. The 5-year-old squealed with delight. "Emma, Sophie is standing. Look, look, look." "I see," Emma said, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "You are such a good friend to her, Lily. I am not her friend, Lily corrected. I am her sister. That is different. Sisters are family. Emma looked up at James, who was watching from the doorway with an expression that made her chest ache. He mouthed the words "I love you," and Emma mouthed them back. Rebecca, ever perceptive, suggested taking both girls to the park, giving Emma and James time alone. After they left, James pulled Emma into his arms. She let herself lean into him, let herself accept the comfort and support she had been denying herself for so long. I am still scared, Emma admitted. I am scared that I do not know how to be a good partner, that I am too damaged, that I will mess this up somehow. Then be scared with me, James said. Be scared, but do not run. Stay and fight for this. Fight for us, I want to. Emma pulled back enough to look at his face. I want to fight for us. I want to try. But James, people are still going to talk. They are still going to say I am with you for your money, that I am using you, that I do not belong in your world. Let them talk. James cupped her face in his hands. I know the truth. You know the truth. Everyone who matters knows the truth. And the truth is that you make me happier than I have been in years. You make Lily feel like she has a family again. You work harder than anyone I know. You love fiercely, and you deserve every good thing that comes your way. So let people talk. We will be too busy living our lives to care. What about Victoria? James's expression hardened. Victoria is no longer my business partner. I bought her out after the gala. She crossed a line, Emma. What she did was unforgivable. The company is mine now, completely, and I have brought in partners who actually share my values. Emma's eyes widened. James, you did not have to do that. Not for me. I did not do it just for you. I did it because I realized Victoria and I had fundamentally different ideas about what matters. She sees business as the end goal. I see it as a means to do good in the world. The foundation matters more to me than Mitchell Technologies ever could. Building something that helps people, that would make your father proud, that is what I want to focus on. Over the next few months, Emma and James built their life together slowly, carefully, with intention. Emma continued her education, worked part-time for the foundation, and proved to everyone, including herself, that she was more than capable of standing on her own. She did not move in with James immediately, wanting to maintain her independence, wanting to be sure she was choosing this life because she wanted it, not because she needed it. Lily continued to be their biggest champion. She told anyone who would listen that Emma was her second mommy, that Sophie was her sister, that they were a family even if some people did not understand it yet. Her innocent certainty became a kind of armor against the whispers and judgments. The foundation grew rapidly. The Harrison Legacy Foundation became known for its hands-on approach, for actually making a difference in people's lives. Emma became the face of it, sharing her story, inspiring others, showing that circumstances did not define you. Her past as someone experiencing homelessness became her greatest asset, giving her credibility and empathy that no amount of education could provide. The official public launch of the Foundation's first residential program was scheduled for a Saturday in late spring. It was a renovated building in the Central District that would house 10 families, providing not just shelter but comprehensive support services. Emma had been involved in every aspect of planning, and she was both excited and nervous about the public event. James, I do not know if I can do this, Emma said the night before, pacing his kitchen while he made dinner. She still could not think of his house as theirs, even though she spent most of her time there. What if I say something wrong? What if people think I am not qualified? You are the most qualified person in the world to speak about this, James said calmly, stirring pasta sauce. You have lived it, Emma. You know what families need because you needed those things. That is not something you learn in a classroom. I just do not want to let anyone down. You could not let anyone down if you tried. James turned off the stove and pulled her into his arms. You are going to be amazing. You are always amazing. The event the next day was bigger than Emma had anticipated. Local media had shown up, along with city council members, donors, and dozens of families who had been helped by the foundation. Emma stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd, and felt the familiar flutter of panic. Then she saw James in the front row holding Sophie, with Lily sitting on his lap. Lily gave her 2 thumbs up and an exaggerated wink that made Emma laugh despite her nerves. 6 months ago, Emma began, her voice steady. I was standing in a grocery store counting pennies, trying to figure out how to feed my daughter. I was exhausted, ashamed, and convinced that I had failed at everything that mattered. I could not see a way forward. I could not imagine that my life would ever be anything other than survival mode. She paused, looking around the room. Then something unexpected happened. Someone helped me. Not with a lecture about personal responsibility, not with judgment or pity, but with simple practical help, and more importantly, with respect. He saw me not as a problem to be solved, but as a person with inherent worth and dignity. And that changed everything. Emma shared her story, talked about her father, about the foundation's mission, about the families who would live in this building and get the support they needed to rebuild their lives. She talked about how help should not come with shame, how everyone deserves a second chance, how community and support make all the difference. By the time she finished, there was not a dry eye in the room. After her speech, as Emma mingled with guests and answered questions from reporters, Lily found her way through the crowd. Emma, Lily tugged on her sleeve insistently. I need to tell you something important. Emma bent down to hear Lily's whisper, but instead of whispering, Lily threw her arms around Emma's neck and said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, I love you, Mommy. I am so proud of you. The room went quiet. Emma froze, aware that cameras had captured the moment, that everyone was watching. She looked at James, who had gone very still, his expression unreadable. Then she looked back at Lily, at this little girl who had worked her way so completely into Emma's heart. I love you too, Emma whispered, hugging Lily close. So much. Are you my mommy for real now? Lily asked, pulling back to look at Emma's face. Because I told my teacher you were my mommy, and she said I should ask you if that was okay. Emma felt tears spill over. If you want me to be, then yes. I would be honored to be your mommy, Lily. Lily's squeal of joy was loud enough to startle several people. She threw herself at Emma again, then ran to James. Daddy, did you hear? Emma said yes. She is my mommy now. I heard, sweetheart, James said, his voice rough with emotion. I heard. The moment became the photograph that ran in every local paper the next day. Emma kneeling down, holding Lily, with James and Sophie in the background. A family unconventional and hard-won, but undeniably real. The headline read, From Survival to Service, the Harrison Legacy Foundation launches with heart. Not everyone understood or approved. There were still people who whispered about Emma's past, who questioned her relationship with James, who thought she did not belong in her new life. But Emma had learned something important over the past months. Other people's opinions could not define her unless she let them. She knew who she was, a survivor, a mother, a woman who had fought for every good thing in her life. She knew what she had with James, a partnership built on mutual respect, genuine love, and shared values. She knew she deserved happiness, not because someone had rescued her, but because everyone deserved happiness. 3 months after that public event, James asked Emma to marry him. It was not a grand gesture or a public spectacle. It was just the two of them, sitting on his porch while Lily and Sophie played in the yard, watching the sun set over Seattle. He did not get down on one knee or make a speech. He just took her hand and said, I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me? Emma looked at him, this man who had seen her at her lowest and never once treated her as less than. This man who had honored her father's memory by helping his daughter. This man who loved her not despite her past, but as a complete person, scars and strengths alike. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I will marry you. They married 6 months later, a small ceremony at the Foundation's community center with just close friends and family. Lily was flower girl. Sophie was held by Emma's matron of honor, Maria. And Daniel Harrison's photograph sat in a place of honor, a reminder that his sacrifice had led to this moment. That his belief in service and helping others had created a ripple effect that touched lives he would never know about. As Emma stood next to James, reciting her vows, she thought about the journey that had brought her here, the darkness and despair, the fear and shame, the slow rebuilding of her life. She thought about her father, about his letters, about his belief that courage meant moving forward despite fear. She thought about her grandmother, about Sophie, about Lily. She thought about all the people who would be helped by the foundation, all the families who would get a second chance, because someone cared enough to create that opportunity. And she thought about love. Real love, the kind built on respect and partnership and showing up day after day even when it was hard. James had not saved her. She had saved herself, with determination and strength that had always been there, waiting for the right circumstances to shine through. James had simply seen that strength, believed in it, and offered his support while she did the hard work of rebuilding. That, Emma realized, was what real love looked like. Not rescue but recognition. Not pity but partnership. Not saving but standing beside and saying, "I believe in you. Now let me help carry some of the weight." As they were pronounced married, and James kissed her while Lily cheered and Sophie giggled, and their friends applauded, Emma felt something she had not felt in years. She felt home, not in a place but in a people. In this family she had been brave enough to accept. This love she had been brave enough to trust. This future she had been brave enough to fight for. The reception was joyful and loud and full of laughter. Former residents of the shelter Emma had stayed in danced next to tech executives from James's company. Lily gave a toast that was mostly about how she had known all along that Emma was meant to be her mommy. Sophie took her first steps during the party, stumbling from Emma to James while everyone cheered. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. Later, after the party had ended and the girls were asleep upstairs, Emma and James sat on their porch, now truly theirs together, watching the city lights. Emma leaned against James's shoulder, his arm around her, and felt peaceful in a way she had never thought possible. "We made it," James said softly. "Look at us, we actually made it." "We did," Emma agreed. "And we are going to keep making it every single day." Because that was the truth about happy endings. They were not really endings at all. They were beginnings, starting points for new chapters and new challenges and new joys. They were the reward for being brave enough to keep going when everything said to give up. They were what happened when you let people see you, really see you, and loved them enough to let them stay. Emma Harrison Mitchell had been homeless, desperate, and convinced she had nothing to offer the world. Now she was a wife, a mother to 2 incredible daughters, and the co-director of a foundation changing lives across the city. She had not gotten here by being rescued. She had gotten here by refusing to give up, by accepting help when it was offered, by believing finally that she deserved good things. And she did deserve them. Everyone did. That was the whole point. That was the message she would spend the rest of her life sharing with every family the foundation served. You deserve good things. You deserve help. You deserve love. You deserve a second chance, a third chance, as many chances as it takes. You deserve to be seen for who you really are, not what circumstances have made you appear to be. As Emma looked out at the Seattle skyline, with James's warmth beside her and her daughters sleeping safely upstairs, she made a silent promise to her father. "I am living the life you wanted for me," she thought. "I am brave, I am strong, I am fighting for a better world just like you did. I am loved and I am loving in return. I am making you proud, Dad. Every single day, I am making you proud." And somewhere, Emma believed, Daniel Harrison was smiling. Dear listeners, we hope Emma and James's story has touched your hearts as deeply as it touched ours while bringing it to you. Their journey reminds us that strength is not always about standing alone, but sometimes about having the courage to accept help, to trust again, and to believe that we deserve happiness. If this story resonated with you, we have prepared a special playlist filled with equally captivating tales of hope, resilience, and unexpected love. You can find it here, just click to your left. These stories explore the beautiful complexity of the human experience, showing us that second chances are possible and that dignity and respect can transform lives. If Emma and James's story moved you, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique narratives that celebrate the courage it takes to keep going, to love deeply, and to build the life you deserve. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What moment touched you most? Have you ever experienced an unexpected kindness that changed your perspective? Share your stories with our community. Together, we create a space where everyone's journey matters, where every story of resilience deserves to be heard. Thank you for being part of this journey with us, and we look forward to sharing many more stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us of the goodness that exists in the world when we choose to see it. Until next time, Remember that your worth is not defined by your circumstances, and that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin when we find the courage to turn the page.